It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
20s, open canvas, limitless opportunity. I don't say that lightly, by the way. I don't care who you are. I don't care what background you come from. If you are in your 20s, the sky's the limit.
That's right.
I mean, I really want people to get excited. And here's the other thing I've been thinking about. There's not a better time to be a young saver and investor than any other time. Think about like myself. I'm in my 40s. Don't mind sharing that. When I started saving money, you had to worry about all the alphabet soup with mutual funds,
Right.
A shares, B shares, C shares, because no loads were just kind of starting to catch traction. Nobody was indexing when I started saving money.
And it was kind of hard even back then to do it on your own. You kind of needed a broker.
Asset
or
allocation
somebody.
was hard because you didn't know, because my first investment was a bank fund. I should have been buying the S&P 500, but there weren't target retirement funds, there weren't the S&P 500 type things. You didn't know about all these things. And by the way, costs keep just dropping like a rock. I mean, we have seen costs go from 2%, 1.5% internal expenses, plus usually some kickback fees, to now you can actually buy a zero fund from Fidelity. That's incredible.
Zero.
I mean, I'm just telling you, best time to be saving money and building wealth. So get excited. Don't blow this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You're going to find out your time from 20 to really 40 is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Treat it with the respect of something that's so powerful.
Because the thing that you have on your side that your 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, and 6-year-old counterparts don't have is not earning power, not how many dollars you have in the bank. It's time, which we're going to show you is your most valuable resource right now.
Let's talk about planning opportunities, though. We're going to go through these pretty quick because we got a lot to cover. Your big, hairy, audacious goal when you're in your 20s, if you want to know planning opportunities, you got to get your savings habit to 15 to 20% of your gross income.
Now, we've done this before, Brian. We'll go talk to a group of college students, or we'll talk to somebody who's like recently early in the workforce, and we say that, hey, you should be saving 15, 20% of your gross income, and you just see some mouths open. Just, how do I do that? How on the road to do it?
Because you have this problem when you're young and starting out. You have time, but money's kind of in short supply.
That's right.
I get that. So that's why I tell you, I didn't give it that title of the big, hairy, audacious goal without some thought. I know that it's going to take time, and we're going to talk about that when I get to the Army of Dollar Bills in a section. But at a minimum, start saving and putting it to work. And then it's okay, look, while you're funding that goal, make sure you have some emergency money. Make sure you're taking advantage of the employer match. That's free money. If you want to push up your percentages, count that employer match. And then last, Roth IRAs, tax-free growth. Because remember, when you're at this stage, and I'm going to talk about this in greater detail, 95% of your future wealth, if you're in your 20s, 90 to 95% of it, could come very well from the growth, meaning the compounding interest, not from your back, your hands, and your brain. That's powerful. Making it tax-free is even more powerful.
You said something to me in show prep, Brian. I know you're going to say this again, but it's amazing. In your 20s, your money works way harder than you do.
No doubt.
The truth.
So you don't have to do a lot. You just got to do a little and release it and let it go to work. So let's talk about the next thing I want to tell you, because with a financial show like The Money Guy, we're going to talk a lot about financial decisions, but there's also, this is the time in your life where you should focus on what's your personal capital worth. But give us some discussion on what young people should be doing.
Yeah, the thing you have to think about is you have to discover what your passions are, what career vocation you want to move in, what are you here to do, what were you put on this earth to be in charge of, and you need to work towards that and go towards that. And you can't be scared to invest in yourself. That maybe that does mean going and getting education, or if you're in a certain field, going and getting credentials. But make sure that you do it wisely, because one of the roadblocks we're going to talk about in a second is you can actually handcuff yourself by investing in yourself with investments that don't have great rates of return. So you have to make sure you do that wisely.
Yeah, this is the time though to invest in yourself. Go out there and figure out what your passion is, but also look at the market and see where those things intersect. I think there's a lot of opportunity with that. And here's the other thing I always tell, and I got this actually from a podcast listener who's now a client, is that we were talking about his successful children. How did he create successful children? And I always loved how he shared. He said he told his kids, go out there and figure out what you do better than 95% of the world. Or I think the way he put it is you're the top 5% of the world. And the example he gave was like, a beautician, somebody who cuts hair. you hear that and you're like, well, how much opportunity does a beautician have with cutting hair and doing hair? And he was like, well, but if you're top 5% and you're the hair, beautician for stars,
yeah.
you're driving the Lamborghini. I mean, there really are. I don't think that you making a choice off of just what you're good at, if you're world class at it, success tends to just kind of happen for you. So find out what you are world class at, and then cross-reference that to trends that are going on. Like there's articles out there about actuaries.
Yep.
There's trends out there about,
Coders,
IT,
programmers.
coders. There's all kind of things. And finance. I mean, how could we not talk about finance? If there's some intersection of your passion, see if those things can work together, and I think you'll help yourself out. I want to transition to roadblocks you should avoid when you're in your 20s. The first thing, and we kind of hinted at this, student loans.
Yeah.
Look, I just told you, you're like, Brian, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. You just told me it was okay to invest in yourself. But there are limits. You do not want to rack up a bunch of student loan debt.
Right.
That's why you really need to kind of pay attention to what is the potential of the career I'm seeking while I'm in college. So if you're thinking about like a teacher probably coming out of school is in mid 30s to mid 40s,
Sure,
depending upon
it.
which region
Where
of the
you live,
country
yeah.
you live in. It doesn't make sense for you to rack up student loan debt that exceeds that first year anticipated salary.
That's a great rule of thumb. Your student loan debt should not be more than your first year of salary. I mean, that's kind of a good
So you
benchmark.
don't want to come out of school with a job that's going to pay you $40,000 in your first year out that you have $120,000 worth of student loan debt. Now, of course, professionals like our doctors, you're probably going to build up some six-figure debt, but that's a whole nother thing. But in general, pay attention to how much your rate of return will be on your career, and then that can be a good guide for how much debt's appropriate.
And investing in yourself means more than just going to college and getting another degree or going and adding on. Investing in yourself may be taking a different internship or trying a job out for a while or just taking certain courses, not actually pursuing a degree. There are cost-effective ways that you can hone your craft and expand your skill toolbox without having to rack up big tickets.
Credit card debt. Oh, man. And I've told y'all the stories. Back when I was in college, coming out in my 20s, you saw lines of people getting free bags of potato chips or a free T-shirt as long as they signed up for a credit card. Now, the rules have changed, fortunately, where I don't think you see those potato chip stands as much. But still, people, please be cautious when you're signing up for credit cards. Be careful about the way you use credit card debts. If you're not paying off your credit card every month, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I had a family member that when they first kind of discovered credit cards and they first discovered financing, they always operated on this assumption, well, I know how much money I have coming in a month. So long as I can afford the monthly payment, that must mean that I can afford the thing that I'm buying. Well, what you do is you get yourself in quicksand that you can't get out of. It's not about, can I afford the monthly payment? That's a horrible, horrible trap to fall into.
I'm going to talk in a minute about your army of dollar bills, and I'm going to use an aggressive growth rate for a 20-year-old in there, say around 10%, because that's the S&P 500. You're going to find out that the predatory rates that your credit card company is using can be higher than 20%. So with that understanding that credit card companies are charging twice what you could even expect to aggressively potentially make on your investments, shows you what a horrible deal credit cards are. So if you can't pay it off, if you're not disciplined enough, this is one of those things, treat it like a very sharp knife. If you don't trust yourself with that sharp knife and you can't pay it off monthly, you might even just want to kind of defer this a little bit. Be very careful of credit cards. Same thing, and this is kind of in the same token, use your auto loans.
Oh, man.
Man, I have stories of guys who came out of college with paid-for cars, went into great careers, and went and bought a sports car, or what they perceived as a sports car, and the insurance payment was more than the car payment just because they were young, a boy or a young man, and then driving a sports car. So I'm telling you guys, auto loans, because it's not just the new car purchase, it's all the incidentals, but then auto loans, and I give this guidance all the time, but I think it's worth repeating on this show. you really need to try to structure. I don't mind you doing a 48-month loan, but you really want to have a car paid off within 36 months. And but when I say that, when I give that general 36-month rule, I'm talking about normal cars. I'm talking about your Hondas, your Toyotas, cars that you're going to get you from point A to point B. As soon as you move into more premium brands, when I'm talking about, the BMWs, the Lexus, the Teslas, and things like that, if you can't pay that car off in 12 months, I think you might be jumping the gun a little bit. And I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way, but you do not want to fake success too soon.
I think that's such a great point. Look, we're car guys. We've got a whole series out there on Teslas. If you haven't watched it, go check that out. But if you are someone in your 20s, we're about to share a number with you in a second. I want you to think about how much the money you're paying for that car really cost you. Because I'm going to give you a little spoiler here. It's a lot more than just MSRP.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to get too fancy too soon. I think a lot of people want people to perceive them as successful. So the tendency is you fake it.
Yep.
And let's go ahead and transition. Let's talk about the army of dollar bills. What are you walking away from?
Oh, hold on. There's two more things I got to say because this one in the 20s, this one in the 20s drives me nuts. Here's one of the roadblocks that I see in the 20s. And
See, I didn't mean to step on and moving in there, but I think I know where you're going, and I'm glad you stepped in.
This one just because so many times we see folks, and we live in a world that has limitless opportunities, just like you said. And the internet is sort of this unbelievable place where you can go get knowledge and you can set things up and you can establish things. So it is easier now than ever to think that you should be further along in your career than maybe you should. Maybe I should get out of college and go start a business. I've got all the education. I just should go become a business owner. Don't discount how valuable in your 20s it is to be able to put in 10,000 hours.
Well said.
To be able to hone your craft, to be able to truly become an expert in that thing that you do.
Build mastery.
That's
and
it.
that, a lot of times, like I'll tell you in the world of finance, you don't want somebody who's green handling your money in the first 2 to 3 years that they've been doing this because they're going to make mistakes. They don't know the psychology. They don't know the behavioral stuff. They don't even just know how market cycles kind of impact you as a person. A lot of you guys with the recent volatility, you might be experiencing that for the first time. We got a call from a client today who's the younger type of client. You guys who have never had a downturn since, because it's been since 2008, 2009, there's a whole group of people never had a downturn. So, and it's the same thing with work and experience. You don't know what you don't know until you build a little wisdom. That makes me sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but there's a reason that 10,000 hours or 5 years worth of experience is so powerful to building mastery and becoming an expert in your field of study.
I love it.
Did I get enough so we can get into the army of dollar bills?
Now let's talk about the army of dollar bills.
Army of dollar bills. You've heard, guys, 20-year-olds, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And let me give you the example. I told you guys that one of the reasons that I am who I am now is because I had an economics teacher in high school that let me know if I just save $100 a month, I'd be a millionaire. That turned on a light bulb. And then I read The Millionaire Next Door, I read The Wealthy Barber, and they turned on more light bulbs. And I was like, because coming from not much money, I just assumed only rich people came from rich people, not realizing that is actually upside down.
Total fallacy.
Most wealthy people are self-made. The number is around 85%. I think going back from that show we did with Sarah, going back hundreds of years, the research shows that it's been over 80% are self-made. It's just a cycle of the human condition. So how do you do this for yourself? Here's a financial fact that you can figure out yourself mathematically. Is if you were a 20-year-old and you want to know what $1 can turn into, what's the potential of $1? Let's assume you invested in something simple like the S&P 500. This is a hypothetical.
Yep.
Realize as you get older, you will get more conservative, but a hypothetical for what the potential is. Take a $1 bill, you invest it in the S&P 500, and it makes 10% per year annualized.
Sure.
You do this all the way until you're 65. You just let that $1 and just let it go. You could do this theoretically with the zero fund at Fidelity.
Absolutely.
By the time you retire at 65, that $1 is going to become $88.
$1 at age 20 turns into $88.
88 times over growth, guys. Think about if you did that by $1,000. Think about if you did that by $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, or $5,500 like you could do in the Roth IRA, or $6,000 in the Roth IRA.
Yep.
And it's just incredible. That's the power of compounding interest. Do not blow this opportunity. And here's the other thing I'll tell you. If you're trying to figure out what would it take to be a millionaire, I mean, even if you just took, if you want to get close, if you were saving, I think I did the number on another show that we're doing. It was something like $88 a month. I thought that was kind of poetic how it worked out to be around that. It gets you right under $900,000 a year with these same growth hypotheticals. What I thought was interesting, this is a person only saving $1,000 a year for 45 years. If you do the math on that, 45 times $1,000, that's a $45,000 investment. To be worth right under $900,000, that means 95% of the growth, the value, was the growth, the compounding interest.
Your dollar worked exponentially harder than you worked.
Do that in a Roth IRA, completely tax-free. Powerful stuff. Powerful.
So a lot of folks have this thought, Brian, where they say, okay, well, I just got out of college. I've been broke the whole time, and now I'm making money. And I'm not going to worry about saving right now in my 20s. I'll probably just wait till my 30s. I'll wait until I get there. And by the way, when I'm 30, I'm still going to be young, right? So it's still going to be pretty good, right? That's kind of the mindset.
That is the type of mentality where you're discounting the juice. You are discounting the juice of what your money at your 20s can do. Check this out. We did the math on it. Your money in your 20s versus your 30s, a 20-year-old versus a 30-year-old, your money is worth 283% more, meaning that, think about this. Here's the way this math works. We know $1 could turn into $88 by the time you're 65 for a 20-year-old. Right. You're going to hear in a minute that for a 30-year-old, the same $1 only turns into $23.
Think about how big that gap is in just 10 years.
So if you put the 88 over the 23, you quickly recognize that there is about a threefold difference, or the growth potential is 283%.
That's right.
Your money is worth that. If you do it by a 40-year-old, because maybe you're one of these people that says, guys, I'm living for today. And you're a 20-year-old, but you go, I'm going to put this off. And unfortunately, this happens, guys, where 20-year-olds turn into 30-year-olds, and they turn into 40-year-olds, and then they wake up and go, uh-oh, should I be saving? And they, oh my, I'm going to retire in 20 years. Here's the problem, though. That 20-year-old versus a 40-year-old, there's an 1,104% difference between what their dollar. So all you poor 20-year-olds, if you want to make yourself feel better, I want you to recognize there is 1,000% difference between you and a 40-year-old. So all these people you're looking up to are in their 40s. You're like, gosh, I wish I had. You very well could have more than they have if you will actually put the money to work.
That's exactly
it.
Right. That's
You're
perfect.
in your 20s. Maximize this. So let's now spot check them, Bo. Where should they be in their 20s?
So I think the first thing you have to remember, because we used to do this wealth formula, right? You've heard us talk about this all the time. You take your age, you multiply it times your income, and you divide by 10. We've always put this disclaimer on there that it's weighted towards older folks. It's weighted towards folks that are 40 and above. If you're someone young, it was just unrealistic. It was too difficult to grasp that. One of the things that we were talking about is when you're in your early 20s, you're still kind of on the runway.
Yeah.
You haven't actually taken off yet. You are still kind of getting the speed up for you to be able to launch.
You, the individual, might, I don't know who you are, but I'm going to assume you're watching a financial podcast and you're part of the Money Guy family. You are a diamond, and you're going to turn into something truly incredible. But here's the thing. You could be, and I make this analogy tying it into what Bo was talking about. You could be the fastest plane in the world, but until you reach that speed on the runway to get liftoff, where you can pull back and it actually takes flight, you're a plane is a bucket of bolts and metal and an engine or a jet attached to it until you actually get that runway and get to lift speed. So we got it. The first 5 years is you got to get to 20%, 15 to 20% savings rate of your gross wages ASAP. I know that it's going to be hard in year 1, it's going to be hard in year 2, but by year 5, I'm hoping you've, through discipline and sacrifice and understanding the power of deferred gratification, you have reached that goal so you can get liftoff. So then that leads to phase 2, Bo. Let's spot check where you should be.
Yeah, so we don't like this problem of having problems that go unsolved. So we said, this formula we've been using for years and years and years and years, There's this huge gap for 20 and 30-year-olds. So
It stinks for those under 40.
how can we fix it? So
We
came up with the math. And I'm looking directly at you right now. We came up with the math to do this. So if you're someone who's under 40, this is the new way that you calculate your wealth score, where you should be.
I feel like I feel like you ought to have a drum. That probably audio wise that was horrible, but I think it proves the point.
Morpheus just like took his headphones off real quick. You take your current annual income, you multiply it by your age, and then you divide by
Here's the magic.
10
Pixie dust.
plus the number of years until you turn 40.
So let's do an example.
So let's say that you are a 29-year-old. So we're going to kind of give you that litmus test of where you should be at the end of your 20s. If you go pull the Bureau of Labor Statistics, average income for ages, the average income for a 29-year-old in the United States right now is $41,288.
So this data gets updated every year. We went and pulled the most recent data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So keep going.
So if you take 29 years old and you multiply it times $41,288, and then you divide by 10 plus the number of years until you get to 40, which was 11, so divide by 21, you would get $57,017. So here's what we just said. If you're a 29-year-old and you make $41,000 a year, your net worth by the end of your 20s, if you want to be just an average accumulator, should be just over $57,000.
It's pretty powerful.
That's pretty powerful. But that's not Money Guy financial mutant.
We want you to be a mutant. We do. Right. We want you to be one of those people that people go, he makes being successful look so easy. So we want you to, and I know, look, I understand as we go through these numbers, you in the 20s, you guys out there in your 20s, this is the hardest, to be that financial mutant that actually has twice the calculated goal. But we feel like we have to give it. We want to give you stretch goals so you feel motivated to go do it. To be that doubling of the number, it's actually 114,000. And if you're married, if you're married and you have two working individuals in your couple, that number does push up to 228,000 right as you're about to cross that threshold of being a 30-year-old.
That's right. So that's your 20s. So there's your goal. Your goal by the end of your 20s should be to have 2 times the formula we just gave you. If you want to know how you stack up to your peers, if you want to be on that financial mutant side, if you have 114,000 saved, you are well above the curve of your peers.
And I don't want to I want to emphasize, give us your email address, go to moneyguy.com, type in your email. We are going to have a deliverable so you can actually go do a line item check, a data chart by age, so you can spot check where you are. And then I don't want to underestimate the value of the multiplier and the formula of knowing how you should do based upon your personal income. Remember that formula, the modified formula we came up with was you take your age, time what you make, and then you divide that by the sum of 10 plus how many years until you reach 40.
That's
if
right.
you will sum those up and then divide it out, you're going to find out that this is much more favorable for our hyper young people who are out there really rocking the world. Do not blow this opportunity.